Good late night rolled side of the mirror. Hope you guys enjoy my show about the CFL success. I'm now sick, I know. I your jeans, I know. I only made like a 51-hour video, guys. It's already 1 o'clock. So a lot of you guys are already in bed, but you guys will enjoy the show when you wake up or after work. Whereas all you pro athletes or Hollywood actors, you guys will watch the video because you guys obviously what? You sleep late or late nighters like me, right? You're a genius. I know. That's how you grow the CFL, guys. Never gonna happen. I'm just throwing it out there. That's how you grow the CFL. Yeah. Why are you making the video this late? Because VJ's crying is annoying. I don't want to go to bed right now. I won't. I'm not gonna make like a 1 hour 40 minute. That's too long. I don't want to go to bed too late. I'll talk for maybe 50 minutes to an hour, and that's it, guys. I mean, you're a genius, I know. Genius. Do CFL players have endorsement deals? Yeah, they do, but they're not big deals. It might be maybe like a $10,000, $5,000, $8,000. They're not like $15,000 endorsement deal. It's not a big deal, right? Because the CFL players are not as popular as they're not that popular. Obviously, yeah. Do CFL players do commercial and everything? Yeah, they do. But like, I notice how the CFL is obviously trying their best to promote the talent, and because most of the American players playing in the CFL are the starters and they're the stars of the league and they promote them, and yet there's no growth because I told you like the Canadians don't really care about the American guys. They don't know who these guys are. They have no idea who these guys are. The fans love them and everything when they become stars, and the fans know who they are and everything. They love them, but because they're American players, they don't really care that much about them. Like I always, sometimes I'll see a commercial on TV. I see commercials on their website and they promote the heck out of these American stars, and yet nobody really cares about them. But the Canadian players, the fans are more tuned into that because they're homegrown talent and they love the Canadian players more than the American players. That's the truth, man. Yeah. Why would there be a dip in quality? Yes, they would, but it won't really make that much of a difference, right? The Canadian athletes are almost as talented as the American athletes. Like it'll be a little bit of a drop. I don't know, a 5% drop in quality, a little bit of a drop in quality, but you're still going to get entertaining football. And if you promote the Canadian brand, the homegrown talent brand, the league would make more money. I know I'm doing higher TV revenue, and the sponsors will be more willing because they're Canadian homegrown talent. Now they can get the Canadian athletes, star athletes, will get bigger endorsement deals than even these American star players in CFL get currently right now, right? Obviously, all the American players are, man, you're such a fucking dick, man. You're putting us down. Well, you Americans in the States put us Canadians down too. You think our CFL is a piece of shit. And you think us Canadian players are horrible players. Because I guarantee you all these American NCAA athletes think Canadian players are horrible players. Then when they come up here, the players didn't get their NFL opportunity and they get cut. As a lot of these American NCAA players come up here and they play against the Canadian players, the CFL star American star players and the Canadian star players, they don't do good and they get cut. Obviously, as Michael Sam went against O linemen, American O lineman, the starring American O lineman and a starring Canadian O lineman in the CFL, he got cut. Troy Smith went up against the American corners and the Canadian quarterbacks, Canadian corners, interception, picks. He did horrible up here and he flopped and they cut his ass, man. Yeah. A lot of American players, they underestimate the Canadian talent. And when they come up here and they play, and the league is like, holy shit, this is fucking competitive football, and they don't do that good up here and they get released, they're shocked, obviously. Yeah, this is almost as good as the NFL. It's not the NFL, but it's almost as good as the NFL. I mean, how much do you think there is of a drop in quality between the NFL and the CFL? Maybe like a 12% drop in quality. Not that big of a drop. NFL is maybe 100%. CFL is maybe 88%. There's like a 12% drop in quality. A little bit of a drop in quality, but it's not that much of a difference, right? Obviously. Some Sarah? Yeah. Yeah. Fucking tired, guys. Yeah. I guarantee some of the American, I don't know, all the CFL legends who are American players who didn't get their opportunity. I man, like you have some balls to say that, man. Like we're better players than you Canadian players. Like yes, you are, but like even though you guys are a bit better than us Canadian players in most cases, there are some Canadian players who are even better than some of the American players, obviously in the CFL. But in most cases, on average, the American players have a bit of the are a bit better. Even though you guys are a bit better than us, obviously, like this is our league. Us Canadian players playing in CFL, we actually are the best players in Canada. Whereas you guys who come up here, even though you have the edge of us in talent, you're not the best players playing in America. You're the leftover rejects of from the NFL, obviously. And because we're Canadian and the fans love us more, we're worth more than you guys, and you guys know it. As I told you, the CFL they promote the heck out of they try their very best to promote the heck out of all these American stars in the CFL, the QBs and everything. And yet, like you notice how the league's not growing because no one knows who these American guys are, man. They have no clue who these guys are because they're American. They played in the NCAA. Like people in Canada don't really watch NCAA. They watch CIS, but they don't watch NCAA. Yeah. As a lot of the CFL fans know a lot about the CIS players or a little bit about the players, and so when they talk about the players, a lot of the fans recognize these guys. Yeah, I recognize this guy from this school, and they talk about this NCAA player. Yeah, he played in the NCAA for Penn State. They tell stories about this NCAA player. He didn't get an opportunity, but like no one cares that much about this guy because they're clues. They don't know who this guy is, man. This guy just came out of nowhere from the States, in a different country, and he's playing up here. No one knows who these guys are. Obviously, some center. Yeah, obviously, man. Like the American players are a bit more talented than the Canadian players. Yes, they are, but no one cares about them guys. Like you've been promoting the heck out of all these guys for years in the CFL, and you're not getting any growth because like no one in Canada knows who these guys are. They're NCAA American players or NFL cuts. Nobody knows who they are, and no one really cares about them because they're American players, right? Yeah. Oh, hey, you guys been sending out. Yeah. So I know the American players playing in the CFL, they're cocky. Yeah, Ivan, you can brag about the Canadian players all you want, man. We're more talented than them by a bit. Yes, you are, but like you guys, I can like the Canadian players can actually say they're the greatest players who ever played the game in Canada, man. Whereas you guys can't say that. You guys are the rejects from the NFL. You know what I'm saying? And who didn't get your NFL opportunity. You guys are all you American players who are playing in CFL are not the greatest players in America. The greatest players in America are all the players who are playing in the NFL. Whereas the Canadian players who are drafted or unsigned draft free agents are the greatest players who played in Canada. That's why we're more valuable than you guys. The GMs don't hate them, I'm saying. Whereas you guys are not the greatest American players in America who are playing in the CFL. You're the leftover rejects in most cases. Some of the guys are good enough for the NFL. They just didn't get the opportunity. There's also guys who went to training camp who were not good enough. They're NFL cuts, and they end up here, right? So you have to take that into consideration. That's why they're not. The Americans are not as valuable as the Canadians. Because the Canadian players playing in the CFL are actually the best players in Canada. The American players playing in the CFL are not the best players in America. They're the leftover rejects that the NFL doesn't want, or who didn't get their opportunity. The best players playing in America are the players playing in the NFL. That's the truth, right? Yeah, it's not the players playing in the CFL, right? That's how it works. Right? I don't hate it a second. Yeah, and that's why Russ Jackson's more respected than even guys like Matt Dunnigan. You know what I'm saying? Ricky Ray, actively, he's more respected than all those guys because he's a Canadian CFL legend. He was the best player playing in Canada at the time who got a shot in the CFL. Whereas even though Matt Dunnigan and Anthony Gabriel of them are CFL legends, they're American rejects who were not good enough for the NFL, and that's why the fans don't really care that much about them. They respect them and they love them. I remember this guy playing the CFL. They respect him, they love him, but they don't love them the way they love Russ Jackson, right? Russ Jackson's so respected. They have a CIS award named after him, the Russ Jackson Award. All you guys say, "Oh, yeah, Ivan." There's an award in the CIS called the Russ Jackson Award. Obviously, yeah. When the CIS players do the awards, obviously, my other stepbrother knows what I'm talking about. He won the AUS Defensive Player of the Year. He didn't win because in the CIS you have four divisions. You have AUS, you have OUA Ontario, you have Quebec, and you have Canada West. My oldest stepbrother won the Defensive Player for the AUS. He played in the AUS division, and he went up against three other guys, but he didn't win the whole league thing, right? The defensive player of the league. It was him versus three other people for the best players in the league. But he won the divisional title, but he didn't win like the whole title. Whereas Enoch Mwamba won the divisional title and he won the whole league title against the three other guys back in 2010. Whereas my older stepbrother, he won the AUS, the best defensive player in the AUS in his division. But when he went up against the three other guys in the other three divisions, he lost. He lost the title. Whereas Enoch Mwamba won the whole thing. He won the whole defensive player in the CIS, the best defensive player in the CIS, obviously. And you guys don't talk about it when they do that award in the CIS. You have one of the awards is the Russ Jackson Award. My other brother knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, the Russ Jackson Award. It's based off Russ Jackson. That's how you know the fans love him. They respect him even more than Anthony Gabriel and Matt Dunnigan. Why? Because he's Canadian. Whereas these guys, they may be legends in the CFL, but like they're Americans. The fans don't really care that much about them, and they also know they're rejects from the NFL. You guys been saying, yeah. Yeah. Well, Ivan, who's the greatest quarterback in CFL history? Anthony Calvillo. Anthony Calvillo even surpasses Warren Moon in the CFL. Like Warren Moon may be maybe an NFL legend, but in the CFL, Warren Moon's not number one, right? Number one is Anthony Calvillo, obviously. Obviously, yeah. Russ Jackson is even more respected than Warren Moon in the CFL. Yeah, man. Fans love Russ Jackson even more than Warren Moon because Warren Moon is just another American guy who came up here and killed the league. But the fans love Russ Jackson even more than Warren Moon because he's Canadian, man. And the Canadian players are just worth more than the American players. That's how it works up here, right? Yeah, man. They have an award named after him. Yeah. Jason Sarno, he was in, yeah. Ivan, do you respect Matt Dunnigan and Anthony Ricky Ray? Yes, I do. Those guys are CFL legends. I respect them. I respect Russ Jackson more because Russ Jackson's Canadian, man. It's just an automatic response. He's a Canadian quarterback who killed the league up here in the '60s. And, you know what I'm saying? He had like he only unfortunately Russ Jackson only played for 8 years. He had a very short career, but when he played up here for 8 years in the CFL, he killed the league. And that's why he's a legend. And I think he has like 1 or 2 Grey Cups in the CFL. He played in the '60s, a long time ago in the '60s in the CFL. And he killed the league up here. And he's Canadian homegrown talent. That's why the fans love him more than even Anthony Gavillo. Even though Anthony Gavillo is number one, he put up almost 80,000 yards in the CFL. The fans love Russ Jackson more. Why? Because Russ Jackson is Canadian, man. The fans just relate more with the Canadian players more than the American players. Obviously. Because this is our league. This is a Canadian football league. That's how it works, right? All the GMs, man, you're a genius, man. And all the American players are, man, you make us feel like shit, man. Like, no, I'm not making you feel like shit. I'm making you feel like shit a little bit. But you guys have your NFL. We have our CFL. That's how it works, right? You have your NFL in the States. We have our CFL in Canada. That's how it works. I don't hate them. Yeah. That's what I would do if I were CFL commissioner. That's how you grow the league. You got to get rid of the American talent, guys. And Ivan, you're fucking crazy, man. Like the quality will drop. The quality will drop a little bit, guys, but it won't really make that much of a difference, man. Like, it'll still be amazing football, man. You have the coaches put these guys to work and they train hard in the offseason. You're gonna get competitive football too. And you promote the Canadian brand, but yeah, promote the Canadian brand. I don't know. The CFL is now Canada. Witness homegrown talent, the best CFL. The best Canadian All-Stars, the best Canadian players playing in the CFL. They'll be more popular. You got to promote the Canadian talent, man. Yeah. Samsara. So Ivan, the CFL fans love Nathan Rourke. Yeah, the CFL fans love Nathan Rourke and all these CFL quarterbacks. Like Zach Caleros, Bo Levi Mitchell, they may be CFL stars, but because they're American players and no one knows who they are, they don't really care about those guys. Whereas because Nathan Rourke is Canadian, they love him a lot more because he's Canadian, man. He's homegrown talent. Obviously, they love Nathan Rourke more, and you guys don't talk about Ivan. Yeah, they love the Canadian players more, guys, in the CFL than they do the American players. Sarah. Yeah. Don't forget, the American players, like, playing in the CFL was not their dream. Like, they just ended up here because they didn't get their NFL opportunity. But a lot of the American players who play in the CFL, their dream is still to play in the NFL. Okay, hopefully I kill the CFL and I get my NFL opportunity, because that's not, their ultimate dream is not playing the CFL. It's playing the NFL because that's like their league. They're from America, right? They want to play in the NFL. Whereas the Canadian players don't care about the NFL. Their dream is to play up here. They want to play pro football up here. Canadian players don't really care about the CFL. Some of them will take NFL opportunities, but it's very rare. Even Canadian star players who play up here, they don't really care about playing the NFL. They all they care about is just, I don't really care about the NFL. I just want to play pro football up here in Canada because this is our league. That's what I'm saying. Canadian players don't really care about the NFL. Like, they would love to play there, but they know the chances of making it there is not high. Because the NFL is for the American players, the CFL is for the Canadian players. That's how it works, right? Yeah. Samsara. Yeah, but why is the CFL draft not, if your thing would work, why is the CFL Canadian draft not that popular? Because the CFL doesn't promote the Canadian players well, and don't forget, a lot of the CFL fans and Canadians, they know most of these CFL athletes are never going to be starters. The chances are they're going to end up on special teams. A few of them might get their opportunities to be CFL stars. They know a lot of these CFL draft players are going to be special team players. The coaches They always have the majority of the players be American starters, man. The majority of the stars in the CFL teams are all American guys, man, in the league. Like, yeah, the talent's a bit better, but like, you notice how the league is not growing because no one knows who these guys are. They may be amazing players, you know what I'm saying, and you know what I'm saying, and they make the talent of the league, the quality of the talent of the league better. But like, you notice how the league is not growing because no one can relate to these guys. No one knows who these guys are, man. They're guys from the NCAA who just come up here and they're clueless. They don't know who these guys are. The fans love the CFL American stars. They love them, obviously, but they don't really care about them because they can't relate to them. They don't know where they came from. They don't know where they played. They're just guys who came up here who happened to kill the league, and the fans love them. They know who they are, but they love the Canadian players more. But most of the Canadian players don't get the opportunity to start because the American players have the edge over with the talent, obviously. And the league is a bit biased over with the American player. The coaches are a bit more biased with the American players because the American players have the edge with talent. Yeah, obviously. But the reason why the GMs are more biased with the American players, because most of the American players are starting in most positions on each team, if they want to compete with the other teams, they have to have most of the American players be stars to reduce the risk of having a worse team. So if you don't want to worry about that, about the 7 team ratio, just get rid of the American players. We don't have to worry about that. Yeah, obviously. And the CFL, I'm not lying, man. They do their very best to promote all these star like American quarterbacks, and yet, you know what I'm saying? There's no growth because no one really cares about these guys. No one knows who they are. They're American players. They're amazing players in the CFL. The fans love them, obviously, but like no one really cares because like they're American players. They can't relate with them, and no one knows who these guys are, man. You guys know what I'm saying? So you promote this American All-Star QB in the CFL, and there's some people in Canada who are watching. They don't know who these guys are. You guys know what I'm saying? Or when you promote Nathan Rourke, so a lot of people in Canada know who he is because he's Canadian. They know who he is, but you promote this American quarterback, no one knows who this guy is, man. Because they didn't watch these guys when they played college in the NCAA. They watched the CIS guys. They didn't watch the NCAA guys in the States, right? You got what I'm saying? Oh, you're just a fucking dick, man. I'm just saying the truth, man. I don't need to put you guys down, man. I'm just telling you the truth, man. Sarah. Yeah, we just crying right now. She's a fucking crazy woman, man. A lot of women do me, man. Yeah. This is gonna go to bed. Yeah. Yeah. So all the American players, like, yeah, Ivan. So the CFL, the Canadian players are worth more than the American players in the CFL. Yes, guys. All you American guys, when you come up here, you'll see what I mean. All you American guys who have that NFL dream of playing in the NFL and you don't make it, when you come to the CFL, you'll notice how all the Canadian stars who are stars in the league, they're going to be more valuable to the league than you guys because the Canadian players playing in the CFL are actually the best players playing in Canada. Best players in Canada. As you have the CFL draft and you have the combine, those are the best players playing, all-star players who play in the CIS. Whereas the American players who come up here, they may have the edge over the Canadian players, but they're not the best players playing in America. They're the rejects, the leftovers. The best players playing in America are in the NFL. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah. Ivan, are the best American players much better than the best Canadian players? No. There's maybe I don't know, a 20% drop in quality. The best American players in the NFL are 100. The best Canadian players in CFL are like an 80. There's maybe a 20% drop in quality. It's not that big of a difference. A little bit of a drop in quality, but it's not that a huge drop, right? As CFL is very entertaining football, almost as good as the NFL. And don't forget, the Team Canada beat Team USA. Obviously, the first time they got destroyed, well, my elder stepbrother played for Team Canada, but after that, a couple years later, they played again. The best players in Team USA versus the best players in Team Canada. Team Canada beat them like pretty bad. Yeah, they beat them. It was like Team Canada beat Team USA. I think it was like 41 like 23 or something. They beat them pretty bad, man. I saw the game back in 2012. My youngest brother was supposed to play in that. He was supposed to try out for Team Canada, obviously, but he couldn't go. I saw the game. Team Canada wiped the floor with Team USA. They beat them pretty bad, man. That's how you know the Canadian players are talented too. Yeah, but the American players are better, obviously. I'd say there's maybe a 20%, 70% drop in quality with the Americans and Canadians. Americans are at 100. The Canadian players are maybe at like an 82, 83. I think the GMs, yeah, I mean, that's pretty accurate. It's not a huge drop in quality, but I mean, they're obviously more talented than the Americans. Yes, they are. I'm going to admit the American players are more talented than Canadian players, obviously, in most cases. But there are some Canadian players who are just as talented as the American players, if not even better. That's what I'm saying. As I believe John Cornish, had he played in the CFL for maybe 10, 13 years, he would have been the greatest CFL running back in history. I don't think anyone ever would have beat him. I think he was even a better running back than Pinball Clemens, obviously. And all you CFL athletes who remember that, you know what I'm talking about, man. He was the best running back in the CFL when he played John Cornish. He was number one. Yeah. There was another running back who played in Saskatchewan. What's his name again? I forget. He had a rivalry with John Cornish. He also killed the league. And he was bragging how he's a better running back than John Cornish. You know what I'm saying? He was a better running back than John Cornish, obviously. You know what I'm saying? The both teams played that game, and John Cornish outperformed that American running back. And he was cocky. Yeah, I'm a better running back. John Cornish knows I'm a better running back than him. Corey Boyd. No, it's not Corey Boyd. I forget his name. You guys remember that? Yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm a better running back than John Cornish. And John Cornish is like, okay, let's see. And then both teams played against each other. He played for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. John Cornish played for the Calgary Stampeders. John Cornish outperformed him in that game. And that's how you know John Cornish was a better running back than even that guy. And he knows it. I believe John Cornish, if he played in the CFL for 10 years, he's Canadian, by the way. He played in the NCAA, but he's still Canadian. He was a fourth-round pick in the CFL. Fourth-round pick. Obviously. He would have been I think John Cornish would have been the greatest running back in CFL history. Better than all the American greats that played in the CFL. He would have beat all those guys. He would have been the best. I mean, that's a stretch. No, man, I'm not joking around, man. He would have been the greatest running back in CFL history if John Cornish played for maybe 10, 12 years in CFL. He would have been the greatest running back in CFL history. And had he made the Hall of Fame, which he would have, he would have been so respected, John Cornish. The fans would have loved him, obviously, because he's Canadian. He would have been even more respected than Pinball Clemens. Why? Because he's Canadian. There you go. That's how you know the fans in Canada love the Canadian players more than the American players. The American players, how it works, right? I don't even understand here. Some sour. I work Wednesday. I did these. I have to work this one. I took last Wednesday off, but this Wednesday I have to work. I need the money. I want to get like a $100 check. I need the money though. I have to work this Wednesday. All right, did John Cornish get an NFL opportunity? I think he did. Because he did so well in the CFL, he was putting up 1,800 yards a season, 2,000 yards a season. I think he did get NFL offers, but he turned it down. And that's how you know the Canadian players don't really care about the NFL. They don't care about the NFL because this is like our league. They know the NFL's biased. Yeah, even though I love to play in the NFL, the NFL is for the American players. Like the CFL's for us. Yeah, the CFL's for the Canadian players. And John Cornish was a starting running back. He was making good money. I heard he was making like $250,000 a year. He was the highest paid running back in the league by far. Why? Because he's Canadian. That's why they paid him the most. That's how you know. And they also did a nationwide commercial with John Cornish. John Cornish was such an amazing running back. I remember the nationwide commercial on TSN. Right, John Cornish, the best running back in Canada. Yeah. You guys remember that commercial? Yeah, all you Canadians don't talk about. Yeah, Ivan. We saw that commercial. Yeah, they promoted John Cornish because he killed the league. And he was also the highest paid running back by far. Like, no, running backs in the CFL don't make $2,000. No, that's a lie. Nowadays, like running backs can maybe peak at $2,000. Sorry, running backs can peak at $2,000. But back then, running backs did not make that. This is back in like 2014. Running backs peaked at maybe $150,000, $160,000, $100,000 in the CFL. And John Cornish, I heard, was making like $2,000 a year in the CFL. He was the highest paid running back. They overpaid him because he's valuable. He's Canadian, man. That's they're worth more than the American players. If the Canadian player is a star, they're worth more than the American players. Obviously. Because it's supply and demand. And don't forget, the Canadian players who play in the CFL are actually the best players in Canada. They're actually the best football players in Canada. The American players, even though they're stars in the CFL, they're not the best players in America. They're the leftover NFL rejects and cuts. So they're not as valuable in the Canadian Football League. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, yeah, that's the truth, right? The GM's like, oh, Ivan, that's true. Yes, it's true. The American star players are worth more than the American players. Yeah, but Ivan, if the American players are better in most cases than the Canadian players, why are the Canadian players worth more? Because they're Canadian and the fans love them more. They promote the brand more. They're more valuable because it's a Canadian Football League. And don't forget, the Canadian players are actually the best players playing in Canada in the CFL. Whereas the American players are rejects. They're not the best players playing in America. The best players in America are in the NFL. That's why they're more valuable. Does that make sense? Yeah, it makes some sense. I mean, yeah, it makes some sense. Obviously, right? Yeah. Sarah? Yeah. Brandon Bridge also played for Team Canada when my old stepbrother played. He also played for Team Canada, you know what I'm saying? He's a mulatto guy. He also played for Team Canada when my old stepbrother played, but he wasn't starting. He was second string. But he was such an amazing Brandon Bridge was such an amazing quarterback. He got a scholarship in the NCAA. He played Division One AA, and he was a starting quarterback in the NCAA, and he killed the league as a quarterback, whereby he was even eligible for the NFL draft, but he didn't get drafted. He was an undrafted signed free agent. No, he got signed. He was signed by I forget by an NFL team, but he got cut, and he was drafted in the CFL like in the third round, I think. And he got his starting opportunity, but he didn't do that good in the CFL. He did okay, obviously. And everyone's like, man, will there ever be a starring Canadian quarterback? And now the CFL is giving Canadian quarterbacks opportunities to start. Like Trey Ford, a CIS quarterback, he actually has a lot of potential. He's a good quarterback. He signed a huge deal with the Edmonton Eskimos. He was a starting quarterback, And the GMs praised him. I believe this guy can be a Grey Cup winning quarterback. But this year, his team didn't do too good. He did pretty good. He did pretty good, but the Edmonton Eskimos are not doing that great this year. So he lost his starting position to an American player, obviously. Whereas Nathan Rourke is like the only Canadian quarterback who actually is a starting quarterback. Like he didn't lose his job. He's doing good. Like he already put up 3+ thousand yards this season in the CFL. I'm saying. All right, that's a lot of yards. Yeah, Nathan Rourke threw for I think 3+ thousand yards so far in the CFL, and the season's not even over yet. He might hit maybe close to 4,000 yards. Nathan Rourke in the CFL, maybe 3,800 yards in CFL. He's doing pretty good. Nathan, he's doing good in the CFL. Nathan Rourke. Yeah, and he's the highest paid quarterback in the CFL. Nathan Rourke. That's how you know the Canadian players are more valuable than the American players. That's how it works, right? Yeah. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers made the Grey Cup 5 years in a row. Zach Collaros is a starting quarterback for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He's an American QB, obviously. They made the Grey Cup 5 years in a row, man. And yet, you know what I'm saying? And yet, Zach Collaros is not even making the kind of money Nathan Rourke is making. Nathan Rourke is Canadian. That's how you know the Canadian players are more valuable than the American players in the CFL because they're Canadian. And they, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And even though the American players are stars in the CFL, like we market them and no one really cares about them. But the CFL Canadian stars, when we market them, it promotes the brand more than the American players. Yes, it does. That's why they're worth more because it's a Canadian Football League, obviously. Obviously. As Nathan Rourke has had a marketing deal for his deal. They market. Yeah, because he's Canadian, we gotta market this guy. Yeah, that's how you know if the league is all Canadian players and you market them a little bit more. The league will make more money. I know I'm doing. Go ahead, I'm saying, yeah. Yeah. All right, do you think the GMs and coaches and all stuff should just be Canadian coaches? No. For the GMs, coaches, and presidents, it doesn't matter who the guy is. I think it's good for the CFL to balance American coaches with Canadian coaches. The American coaches are great coaches, they're amazing coaches. That doesn't matter. But for the players, get rid of the American guys and just have them be Canadian players. Promote the Canadian brand, homegrown brand, and the league will make more money. I know I'm doing. Sarah? Yeah. Nice and Sarah? Yeah. The CFO's like, yeah, Ivan, like, you're kind of right, man. Like, we've noticed how the CFL's not really growing, even though, like, most of the American players, most of the stars in the CFL, yeah, but the truth is, most of the stars in the CFL are all American players. Like, for each team, you'll be lucky to have maybe nine Canadian starters who are stars, and then the rest of the team is all the American guys who are the stars of the league, obviously. And you notice how they try their best to promote the American stars with the commercials and the TSN promos and all that stuff, and nobody cares. Why? Because they can't relate to these guys. They don't know who these guys are, man. That's the truth, man. They may be a little bit more talented than the Canadian players, but because like they're Americans, no one really cares about them. You guys know what I'm saying? Don't hate them, saying, yeah. Like sometimes when I watch CFL games, I watch clips here and there. I'll see Dwayne Ford and Glenn Sue. They talked about this guy who played in the NCAA and everything. And I don't really care, and I'm clueless. Yeah, like you can talk about this American player all you want. I don't know who this guy is. I never watched him in the NCAA. Like nobody knows about this guy, man. He's just a guy who came up here from America and he played. He's playing in CFL. He may be a star and everything. Don't get me wrong, man. The fans in the CFL, if all these American players who play in the CFL, the fans love them, man. If you're a star up here, the Canadian CFL fans will love you, but like they don't love you as much as the Canadian guy. That's my point, right? They don't love the American guys as much as the Canadian guys. That's the truth. Yeah, because like nobody knows who they are. Yeah, they even do a thing in the beginning of each CFL game. The beginning of each CFL game, obviously, they do the anthem, right? Oh Canada, you see the American players and like they're saying "Oh Canada," but I mean like, it's a bit weird because like these guys are not a Canadian, like you know what I'm saying, playing the CFL was not their dream. Their dream was playing. No, hang on, their dream was playing the NFL, obviously, and they're singing the "Oh Canada" anthem, but I mean like they're American players and playing Canada, they don't really care that much about Canada because they're American guys. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Oh, you're such a fucking dick, man. Well, you guys put us Canadian players down too, right, in the States, right? So you gotta reserve names. Yeah. Yeah. Why? Which QB is marketed the most in the CFL? Nathan Rook. Why? He's Canadian. And he's the highest paid quarterback too in the CFL. Nathan Rook makes more than Zach Caleros. Zach Caleros brought his team to the Grey Cup 5 years in a row with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and yet Nathan Rook is a higher paid quarterback than even Zach Caleros, who's a two-time Grey Cup champion with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and he had five straight Grey Cup appearances. Like he's destroying the league, and yet Nathan Rook is worth more to the league than even Zach Caleros. Why? He's Canadian, man. That's why. That's all you know, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm saying. Don't hate you guys. I'm saying, yeah. Ugh. Ugh. Why would you respect the American CFL stars who play in the CFL? Yes, I do. They're stars in CFL. I respect them too, but I don't respect them as much as the Canadian players, right? For obvious reasons, obviously, because even though they're stars in CFL, they're not the best players in America. The best players in America are the guys playing in the NFL, like Patrick Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? Those guys are the best American players who are playing in the NFL. These guys who are CFL stars in CFL are not the best players in America. They're the NFL rejects and cuts, or the players who didn't get their NFL opportunity. You guys know what I'm saying? Whereas the Canadian players who play in the CFL are actually the best players playing in Canada. They're actually the best players. You get the similar example of the NFL players, right? The players playing in the NFL are actually the best players in America who played football in college. The players playing in Canada are the best players who played football in college in Canada. Obviously, you guys get the picture. All right, we got the picture. Yeah, yeah. So I in the CFL when the play-by-play guys and color commentators talk about the CIS players, yeah, when the play-by-play guys talk about the CIS players or the NCAA players, a lot of the CFL fans know what they're talking about because they saw, they have an idea about the players because they were drafted and they know a little bit about these guys playing in the CIS. They know a little bit about them, or they know a lot about them. Whereas when they talk about these American players who played in the end, so this guy played in Penn State, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's cool to mention that, but like, no one really cares and no one knows who this guy is. You guys know what I'm saying? They're unknowns who just come up here, you know what I'm saying, and no one knows who they are. Like, even though they're CFL stars and the fans love them, they don't love them the way they love the Canadian players. Yeah, you guys know what I'm saying? That's the point. You're just a fucking dick, bro. Little man. Like, you American players put us Canadian players down too, so you guys deserve nothing. I'm saying, yeah. I'm sorry. You know what I blow my minds when I know I'm a genius. I thought it was of God. Yeah. And that's one reason why the CFL Canadian draft is not that popular. I know why the CFL Canadian draft is not popular, because the CFL doesn't really promote it that well. They don't promote the Canadian talent that well. And a lot of these CFL fans, they know most of these CFL players are not going to be starters. They're going to get put on the practice rosters. They're going to get released. They're going to play special teams. All of the starting positions are going to go to the American players. Obviously, because the CFL, I don't mean to be rude, it's kind of like the American Football League because all the star players are, most of them are all these American guys from the States, and only maybe 8-9 guys in every team are Canadian starters. That's one reason why the CFL draft is not that popular. They don't promote it that well. You don't promote the Canadian brand that well. And a lot of these CFL fans know most of these CFL players are not going to be starters. Obviously, they're going to be playing special teams, or they get cut and released. You know what I'm saying? All the starting positions are going to go to the American players. Hence why the CFL fans don't really care that much about the CFL draft, because they know these GMs are going to start all these American guys over the Canadian guys. Like, you guys know what I'm saying? That's one reason why CFL, there's no growth in your league, because you're starting all these American guys over the Canadian players. They may be a bit more talented, and the talent's a bit better than CFL, but you have no growth because no one really cares about these guys, man. That's the truth, man. Don't hate him, saying, yeah. No one really cares about the American players. They don't know who they are, right? Yeah. Yeah. Some sorry. Yeah. So that's one reason why the CFL draft is not that popular. Yeah, the CFL draft is not that popular because the CFL doesn't really promote it that much. It's not that they don't promote it. Like the NHL draft is very popular in Canada. Everyone watches that. The CFL draft, they don't really promote it that much. The CFL doesn't promote it that much, and all the CFL fans, obviously, a lot of the CFL fans and the Canadian fans in Canada who love the CFL, a lot of them don't tune into the CFL draft because the CFL draft is kind of a crapshoot, because most of these players are going to end up getting released, or they're just playing special teams. All these CFL, all the best players in Canada don't really get their opportunity to start because of the stupid ratio thing. Most of the starting positions are the American players. Yeah, even though this guy's a first round pick, this guy's a second round pick, a third round pick, chances are these guys are going to end up playing special teams, or they might get released, or they're in the practice roster, you know what I'm saying? And a few guys, yeah. Out of all the players who get drafted, maybe a good 12 of them, 14 of them will be CFL starters. And the rest are going to be special team guys, They have a career in special teams. Whereas all the starting positions are the American players. I don't really care about the CFL draft. Yeah, that's one reason CFL why the fans don't really watch your CFL draft, because they know most of the starting spots are going to go to the American players. Why do most of the American players have start over the Canadian players? Because the American players have they're a bit more talented than the Canadian players. That's the truth. Obviously, they're a bit more talented. In most cases, they're a bit more talented. Obviously, that's why no one really cares so much about the CFL draft. But if you want to fix that problem, that's why you have to get rid of the American talent. And if you get rid of the American talent and you promote the CFL draft a bit more, your CFL draft will now be more popular, and the fans will actually care more about the players that you're drafting. Whereas right now in the CFL, the fans don't really care that much about the players they draft, because chances are the GMs are going to just release them. They play special teams, and all of the starting positions goes to the American players. Like, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people watching in Canada know a lot of these draft picks are not going to be CFL stars, because all the American guys get the starting position in the CFL. In our fucking league, man, which I think is a bit unfair, right? Yeah. So all the best players in America obviously get to play in the NFL. Obviously, and the best players in Canada who get drafted in the CFL, most of them are not even starters. And all these leftover NFL rejects, they come up here in our league, and you're giving them the spotlight to start and be stars in the CFL over the star Canadian players who are worth more and who are actually the best players in Canada. Like, does that make sense, guys? Yeah, but they're more talented. Yeah, they're more talented, but they're not worth as much, guys. They're rejects, guys. No one cares about these guys. They care more about the Canadian guys. But what you're doing, CFL, is that you're limiting the opportunity for the Canadians. You're giving all the opportunity to all these Americans who didn't get their opportunity in the NFL and who are not the best players in America. And you're giving these guys the shining spotlight in our fucking league, man. It's a slap in the face, right? I mean, I know how to blow your mind away. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. Is that fair? Yeah, I mean, the way you look at it, yeah, it's not fair, man. Like, this is our league. This is not you guys' league in America. This is our fucking league. And yet most of the American guys are the ones who have the spotlight in the CFL. Most of the CFL stars are all the American players who are rejects, and you give these guys the opportunity to play pro football here, but you barely give the Canadian players the opportunity to play pro football up here. Why? Because the American players are better. Hence why you got to get rid of them, man. Get rid of the Americans, guys. If you want to give the Canadian players the opportunity to shine. You're taking away the spotlight from the Canadian players and giving all the spotlight to all these American guys who no one cares about really that much, who are rejects from the NFL, man. Like, in the fucking CFL. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a slap in the face, man. It really is, man. It really is. Yeah. So I'm saying. The reason why we do that because the American players are more talented, Ivan. They're a bit more talented. Obviously, yes, they may be a bit more talented, but they're not as valuable, guys. The Canadian players are more valuable than the American players. You know it. The Canadian football players are more valuable than the American players in Canada. Just like the American players in the States are more valuable than the Canadian players in the States, because they're in America, right? You guys get the picture? Yeah. And that's why a lot of CIS draft picks, a lot of them they end up retiring because they notice the bias in the league, obviously. Because there is a bias in the league with American players. The coaches and GMs just start American players over the Canadian players. And a lot of them end up on the bench and they end up playing special teams. Yeah, this is bullshit. I'm retiring, man. The league has a bias towards the American players. The CFL players are more valuable than the American players in the CFL, but the CFL obviously has a bias towards the American players more than the CFL players. In our fucking league, man, like these American guys are what are American, and their dream is not playing up here. Their dream is playing in the NFL, and you're giving all these guys the spotlights to shine over all the Canadian players. Yeah, well, Ivan. The reason why we're doing that because they're more talented, Ivan. They're a bit more talented. Yes, they are a bit more talented, but like no one really cares about these guys. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? They care more about the Canadian players. So Sarah? Yeah. Yeah. Even my younger stepbrother told me that. He told me. Yeah, he told me. Like I remember one day I was eating food with him. I forget what happened. He told me he's like, yeah, Ivan, if the CFL was only Canadian players, the league would be more popular, man. And he told me that, man. Yeah. I remember my younger stepbrother, he was buzzing about Nathan Rourke and Trey Ford. Ivan, man, like Trey Ford is actually starting. He was going crazy about it, man. That's how you know if you have the CFL be only Canadian talent, man, to be more popular, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh my God, this star quarterback is starring in the CFL. He's a star in the league. It'd be more popular, obviously. And whenever Nathan Rourke became a star in the CFL, it was nationwide news. Everyone was buzzing about Nathan Rourke. Before he went to the NFL, everyone was buzzing about Nathan Rourke, man. Everyone, all the Canadians were rooting for him. Why? He's Canadian, man. That's how you know the Canadian talent in Canada and the CFL is worth more than the American talent. That's the truth. The American talent may be a bit more a better quality, but it's not worth as much as the Canadian talent, obviously. Why? Because the American talent in the CFL is not the best talent in America. The Canadian talent in the CFL is actually the best talent in Canada. And because they're Canadians and the fans can relate to them more, they're more valuable and they're worth more than the American talent. That's the truth. Sarah? Yeah. Why, man, like we can't do that, man. If you get rid of the American players, they don't have an opportunity to play role. They can play in the Arena Football League, guys. There's an Arena Football League in the States. There's the XFL. They can play there, guys. That's good enough. Yeah. I'm saying, yeah, there you go. Just like the NFL has, the Canadian players have very limited opportunities in the NFL. The NFL has a bias towards Canadian players. I told you the story about Enoch Mwamba, right? He had 11 tackles and he was the number one defensive performer as a linebacker in the NFL preseason game, and they put him in the practice roster. So if the NFL is going to limit opportunities for the Canadian players, why should we give so much bigger opportunities for the American players? Like, does that make any sense, guys? Like the Americans have their league, guys. They have the NFL, and they have the Arena Football League, and they have the XFL. Whereas the Canadian players have the CFL. You see what I'm saying? The Canadian players in the CIS don't really care about the NFL. Their dream is not playing the NFL. Their dream is to play up here. They don't care about the NFL. Most players in the CIS. If they get an opportunity, they get drafted in the NFL, they'll take the opportunity. But I told you, because they have a bias towards Canadian players, obviously, the NFL, obviously, they you know what I'm saying? They get released, they get put in a practice roster, and they end up playing, coming up here playing in the CFL, right? Very rare for a Canadian player to start in the CFL. The only Canadian player who I know a few people who are playing in the a few Canadians who are playing in the NFL, but they're not starting. The only the only Canadian player who I knew was a starter was that O-line who played at Laval. He did so well. He was an amazing O-line in the CIS. He got drafted in the 6th round in the NFL, and he actually became a starting left tackle in the NFL. He played in the CIS, and he became a star in the NFL. And they offered him like a 7-year, $43 million deal. Amazing story. This O-line who played at Laval University, the CFL scouts were raving about him. The NFL scouts were even raving about him. They loved that O-line so much they drafted him in the NFL in the 6th round, I believe. And he eventually became a starting left tackle. And they offered him like, I don't know, a 6-year deal, like $45 million deal, and he turned it down to be a doctor. So there's rare exceptions, but it's very rare for a Canadian player to be starting the NFL. It's not going to happen, man. Because the Canadian players, don't forget, are not as talented as the American players in most cases. On average, the American players have the edge over them. And the NFL also has a bias towards Canadian players. That's the truth. They do. Obviously. So the NFL has a bias towards Canadian players. And then all the best Canadian players who play in the CIS and NCAA, they get drafted, and the league has a bias towards the American players too in our league, in the CFL too. So you have two biases in the two leagues. The NFL has a bias towards the Canadian players, and the CFL also has a bias towards the American players. The CFL what? They start all the American guys over the Canadian guys. That's how it works. Why? Because that's why you got to get rid of the Americans. Why? Because the Americans, because the CFL is allowing Americans to play in the league, obviously, and you have because every team has a bunch of Americans. If you want to have balance with your quality and talent, you have to start the American players over the Canadian players, because the Canadian players on average are not as talented as the American players. That's why. But if you get rid of the Americans, you don't have to worry about that ratio nonsense anymore. The GMs don't have to worry about that anymore if you get rid of the American talent. You have that thing with we have started the Americans because they're a bit more talented. I know, but if you want to get rid of that ratio problem, that's why you got to get rid of the Americans. That's what I'll tell the committee, right? Yeah. That's what I'll tell the committee, right? Yeah. Yeah. Obviously. And when Canadian players in the CFL make big plays, the fans are roar much more than even the American players. They go crazy over the Canadian players. Andrew Harris, John Cornish, Nathan Rourke, Trey Ford. Unfortunately, Trey Ford, he didn't do that good. Obviously. No, Trey Ford actually did good, but his team was just not that good, right? The Edmonton Eskimos, I believe, are the worst team in the West. Obviously. And Trey Ford also signed a mega deal too. He was one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league too, man. The reason why the GMs pay these guys a lot of money because they're worth more and they're Canadian, man. They're more valuable than the American players. That's how it works, right? So even the Canadian players in the CFL are more valuable the GMs, but the GMs obviously and the coaches have a bias towards the American players. They start all the American guys who are NFL rejects from the NFL, and they don't give the Canadian players an opportunity because the American players have the edge over the Canadian players in talent. Yeah, we're better than you guys, man. Yeah, you may be better than us, but you're not as valuable as us, and no one really cares about you guys, man. The league is not. Yeah, the quality is amazing, but the league is not growing, guys. You know what I'm saying? If you want to keep making your $250 million every season, and you don't get much television viewership and all that stuff, you got to make some changes, man. That's how it works, right? Don't hate yourself. Yeah, I make some changes. That's how it works, right? Never gonna happen. But if I was CFL commissioner, I'll tell the committee, look, man, if you want this league to grow, I'm gonna throw something wild out there. You gotta get rid of the American guys. Get rid of them. Ivan, like, we can't do that. Look, man, do you want this league to make money or not? You know what I'm saying? Ivan, before I show this kind of here, Ivan, give me one reason why we should get rid of the American talent. Okay, I'm gonna ask you guys this question. When you guys promote all these American amazing players who play in the CFL, who are CFL stars, when you guys promote the heck out of them with the commercials and the promos and everything, like, you know what I'm saying? Do people really care about these guys? No, they don't. Yeah, no one knows who they are. No one really cares about them because they're Americans and they can't relate to them. Obviously, they're not as valuable up here, the American guys, because they're American. They're not from here. They're from the States. And don't forget, these American guys don't really want to be here, right? Their dream was to play in the NFL, wasn't playing in the CFL. When they play up here, they love playing pro football here. They love playing in the CFL and all that stuff. But their real dream is to play in the NFL. It's not playing in the CFL, guys. Whereas the Canadians, guys, this is their league. They want to play up here. The Canadian players, their dream is to play in the CFL. It's not playing in the NFL. The Canadians don't really care about the NFL. Most Canadian players in the CFL, if they get NFL opportunities, they turn it down. They just say, "No, I'm good, man. I love playing up here." They don't care about the NFL, the Canadian football players that much. Whereas the American players, nah, man. Like, when they get NFL opportunities, a lot of these GMs in the CFL, they lose a lot of the star players to the CFL. Because their ultimate dream is to play in the NFL. It's not playing in the CFL. I'm sorry. I'll tell you a story before I show this half here. There was a receiver who played in the CFL, obviously. You know what I'm saying? He killed the league, obviously. And then the league offered him 3 years, $600,000. They were willing to pay him $200,000 a year with housing and endorsement deals, whatever it is, and all that stuff, right? And he had an NFL opportunity. He said, "No, I only want to play for 1 year." And the league said, "No, we want you to play for 3 years." And he turned it down. They offered him all that money, and he still turned it down. He chose to play in the NFL. That's how you know the American players care more about playing in the NFL than playing up here. This is not their dream, man. Their dream is playing down south. It's not playing up north. They just ended up here because they had no choice. Like, they weren't good enough for the NFL, and they didn't get the opportunity. They end up here. But even though I'm playing the CFL, I'm a star, I want my NFL opportunity. Yeah, they want their NFL opportunity. Chances are not high, but when they get that opportunity, they take it. And the CFL GMs, they know they can't compete with the NFL, and they lose those guys to the NFL. Yeah, man. That works, right? Yeah. Jeez, I know. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys know this show. It's getting very late. Hope you guys know this show about the CFL. Sorry, I'm saying peace. I don't hate him, son. Hope you guys know this show.